Okay, we're open up to the next clean page in our math notebooks for today's math lesson. Today, we are titling our page 8.8 Multiplication as Scaling. I kind of put my C and my A really close together. That's S-C-A-L-I-N-G. Yeah, it kind of does. And then today's date, 2/18/2021. So give me a thumbs up when you have your header ready. Jack L., where's your notebook, bud? So 8.8 multiplication and scaling. So like I said, today what this is all about is us looking at a multiplication problem that has either two mixed numbers, two fractions, or a mixed number and a fraction, and being able to tell is the answer, or let me back up. We're having two multiplication problems. So if we had like 1/3 times 1.5, and then 1/3 times 2/5, being able to tell, okay, which one is going to be greater, which one will be less, and or will they be equal? So I have some tricks to show you on how you can just look at a problem where they have like one common fraction in both of them, and being able to tell which equation is going to get you the bigger answer, or they're going to be equal. So give me a thumbs up when you're heading. Okay, so what we're going to start off with. Question. This is the question that we're basically answering. How can I predict how large a fraction product will be based on the equation? So you might be thinking, well, Missy, there's a lot of words in here. Well, we know that predict, that's like an educated guess. How can we guess how large or how big a fraction product? Well, we know a product is the answer to a multiplication problem. So how can I guess the size of the answer to a multiplication fraction question will be just based on the equation? So not even solving the equation, just looking at it. So this is the question that we are answering today. And you might be wondering, well, Ms. G, why did we put the title multiplication and scaling at the top? Well, when we're looking at two equations and trying to figure out, okay, which one's larger, we're basically scaling it. Like, okay, this one's going to be greater on the scale, this one will be less than. So we'll be using our greater than, less than, and equal to signs today. Give me a thumbs up when you have our question written down. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Theosis, put it away, please. Thank you, Allison. Okay. So go ahead and get started on the notes. And so that we don't forget, wherever you have a little bit of space, I have a bunch of space up at the top of my page. I want to remind myself of what the greater than, less than, and equal to signs are. So I'm going to put up here. So we have greater than. Yes. I'm just going to put greater. Or greater than. Yeah. Then we have less than. That's the opposite. And then are equal to.
Greater than, less than, and equal to. Give me a thumbs up when you have those three symbols at the top.
Awesome. It's always good to remind yourself, because even when you think, okay, I've got it, just having that little reminder at the top of your notes can be so helpful. Because you might accidentally be thinking, oh, if it opens up to the right, then that means it's greater than. And then you could get all of your problems wrong just because you didn't write down that little reminder. That is how you do it. Okay. Now, we have a table that we are going to be putting in our notes today. And each row is one of the tips that I have for you. So what I did is I wrote out the words first, and then I put the lines to create the table. So I'm just gonna show you the first row. So for the first row, if the fraction is smaller than 1. So for this table, the common number in every equation is going to be number 5. And so if we are multiplying 5 by a fraction that is smaller than 1, the product will be smaller than the whole number. So go ahead, get this written down, and then I'm going to show you what I mean. Yes, Zoe? Okay, did you need me to scoot up? Is that what it was? Okay, there you go. Thank you for giving me a thumbs up when you're the first row done. Thank you. Okay, so all of our examples, or all the problems that we're looking at, they're going to have a whole number. So in this equation, we have 5 times 1/2. Well, I solved it. You're going to be doing this without solving them, but I solved it so that you could see the specific answer. So whenever we have a whole number and we're multiplying it by a fraction that is smaller than 1, so anything less than 1, in this one, 2 over 2 would be 1. Anything less than that, it is going to be smaller than the whole number we're multiplying it by. So is 2.5 smaller than 5? Yes.
Yes, exactly. So since we're multiplying 5 by a fraction that's less than 1, our answer will automatically be smaller than 5. So even if I didn't write the answer here, if we looked at this and we thought, okay, I have the whole number 5, I'm multiplying it by 1/2. Well, 1/2 is smaller than 1, so my answer, or my product, will be smaller than the whole number, which is 5. So I know that the answer to this is smaller than the number 5. That gives you some information when you need to order equations from least to greatest. We know that this will be smaller than 5, and it is. Okay, I'm going to give you another moment to finish the first row. I see a few people finishing up like that last part of it. Okay, then let's scoot this up to where we can just see the whole table. Then my second one, so if this is our rule for if the fraction is smaller than 1. Our next one is if the fraction is larger than 1. So if the fraction is larger than 1, the product will be larger than the whole number. So again, we have the whole number 5, but we're multiplying it by 3 halves. Now, 3 over 2, that's an improper fraction, meaning it's larger than 1. So if I multiply 5 by an improper fraction, my answer then is larger than the whole number 5. So again, 5 times 3 halves, I wrote the answer so that you could see. 7.5 is larger than 5 because we're multiplying it by a fraction that's larger than 1. Give me a thumbs up when you have this one written down, this row. And notice that I put smaller and larger, all capitals, in the left column. And then in the middle column, I underlined the word smaller and the word larger. I'd like you to make sure you're doing the same thing as well. Thank you, Grayson. Yes, can you just underline it? If you want to. I like to really make it stand out though, so if I need to look back at my notes, I can find what I want really quickly. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Connor. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Ella. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Jude. Thank you, Chanel. Thank you, Tracy. Give you another moment to finish that up. So our first row says that if the fraction is smaller than 1, the product will be smaller than the whole number. Our second row says if the fraction is larger than 1, the product will be larger than the whole number. Raise your hand if you can predict what our third row is going to say. What do you think our third row is going to say, Chanel? Fraction equal to you got it. Our third row. If the fraction is equal to 1, the product will be equal to the whole number. So again, 5 times, and I made sure to put it as a fraction. 2 over 2, when our numerator and our denominator are the same, that is equal to the whole number 1. So if we're taking 5 and multiplying it by a fraction that's equal to the whole number 1, it's the same as taking 5 times 1. So that stays 5. Give me a thumbs up when you have your table completed.
we're going to look at one, maybe two of them together. Then I'm going to have you use them on your own. Because on your homework, thank you, Yoshi, there will be a few different types of problems. Some of them will ask you to just write a greater than, less than, or equal to sign. So if we had like 5 times 1/2 on one side, then a box for us to write the sign, and then 5 3/2 on the other, then you would write, okay, is 5 times 1/2 greater than, less than, or equal to 5 3/2? That's one type of problem you'll see on your homework. The other type of problem you'll see on your homework is it's going to ask you to just list the equations in order from greatest to least. So if we have the equations 5 times 1/2, 5 times 3/2, and 5 times 2/2, you would order them either from least to greatest or greatest to least. So they will always have the same whole number, but the fraction that you're multiplying it by will be different. So let's go ahead and take a look at our practice problems. So our practice, it says complete each without multiplying. I accidentally spelled without wrong, so I had to make that U over another letter. So complete each without multiplying. Are you guys okay if I scoot up past the table? Is there anyone still writing in the table? Okay. Because I know it's brighter towards the top of the screen. There we go. Quickly. All right. So I'm going to show you the practice problems, get them all written down, and then we're going to do 2 of them together. 2 of them. Thanks, Jeff. All right. So here we are. So like I said, the first 3 are the first type of problem that you'll see in your homework. We're given 2, or actually for this one, okay. For this one, what we're doing is we are given, like for the first one, 2.5 times 1 2/3. Well, we want to know, is this answer going to be greater than, less than, or equal to 1 2/3? So instead of having a whole number here, we just have a mixed number. So we're trying to figure out, when we multiply 1 2/3 by 2.5, is 1 2/3, is it going to become greater, less, or equal to 1 2/3? So this is the first type that we are going to be looking at. Then the second type of problem you'll see on your homework is ordering different equations. So we can see here, we have 3/5 in common in each of these equations. Ordering these from least to greatest, or smallest to greatest. And then number 5 is the opposite, greatest to least. And again, you'll notice they all have the same fraction in common, 1/3. So we're going to look at one of these together, and then either 4 or 5 together. So go ahead, get these written down, and then we're going to look at 2 of our problems together. And I'm going to keep my hand on the page so that it stays bright. Come on, there we go. So number 1 is 2.5 times 1 2/3. Then our box for either our less than, greater than, or equal to sign, and then 1 2/3. Number 2 says 3/5, that's a 5, times 4 4/5, then our box, and 4 4/5. So everyone should be getting these written down. And then number 3, 3 3/5 times 2/2, our box, and 3 3/5. And then number 4, ordering least to greatest, we have 2 times 3/5, 2 1/4 times 3/5, 3/4 times 3/5, and 5/5 times 3/5. Then for number 5, ordering greatest to least, we have 3/3 times 1/3, 4 times 1/3, 2 2/3 times 1/3, and 2 1/3
times 1/3. Give me a thumbs up when you have them written down. Thank you, Will. Put my hand back in there so it's nice and bright. Okay, a little better. And make sure you're putting enough space in between your equations for 4 and 5 because you don't want to accidentally link some numbers together that aren't a part of the equation. So after we solve 2 of them together, then you'll be able to solve the rest on your own, and then we'll correct them together. Thank you, Layla. Thank you, Senna. If you need me to say a number or a fraction that you're having a hard time seeing, just let me know. I know towards the bottom it's a little more dim. Thanks, Drew. Thanks, Chanel. Thank you, Richie. Thanks, Elena. Give me another moment or two. Thanks, Mackenzie. Another moment or two to get them written down. See a lot of people on number 4 and number 5. Thank you for taking your time and making sure you're getting the right fractions written down. That's awesome. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, yes. Thank you, Allison. One more moment. See a few people finishing up number 5. And while we wait for our last few friends to finish up, I know in our table it said the product would be like smaller than the whole number. We can replace whole number with whatever type of number it is that we're multiplying by. So like down here in number 4, the common number we have is 3/5. So with our table, we could say, if the fraction is smaller than 1, the product will be smaller than 3/5. Or if the fraction is larger than 1, the product will be larger than 3/5. So you can just replace the word whole number with whatever that common fraction is. So for number 4, our common fraction in every equation is 3/5. So up in our table, we can replace in that middle column the word whole number with 3/5. Okay, let's take a look. Thank you, Addie. Let's take a look at number 1 together. So for number 1, we have, what you want to do with these types of problems is first identify, okay, what is the number that's both in the equation and on the other side of our box? So is 2.5 both in the equation and on the other side of our box? No, 1 2/3 is. So that's like our common number. We're trying to figure out, when we take 1 2/3 and multiply it by 2.5, is that going to be less than, greater than, or equal to 1 2/3? Whisper to the person next to you, what do you think it's going to be? It's 2.5. So what do you think? All right, ready to rock? All right, on the count of 3, I want you to tell me greater than, less than, or equal to for number 1. 1, 2, 3. It's greater than, because if we look back up at our table, so the common number on both sides of our box is 1 2/3. So we're actually going to look at our 2.5. 2.5, is it smaller, larger, or equal to 1? It's larger than 1. So that tells us our product is going to be larger than, and remember, we can replace whole number with that fraction or mixed number. So the product will be larger than 1 2/3. So that means if we take 1 2/3 and multiply it by 2.5, it's going to be larger than just 1 2/3 on its own. So I'm going to put the greater than symbol. Awesome. Are there any questions on this type of problem? Does that make sense, what we're doing here? Okay. Now let's look at number 4 together, ordering the equations from least to greatest. So with this type of problem, again, the first thing you want to do is figure out which fraction is in every single one of our equations. Raise your hand if you can see which fraction is in every single one of our equations. Raise your hand if you can see which fraction is in every single one of these equations for number 4. All right. On the count of 3, let's say that fraction out loud. 1, 2, 3. 3/5. So we know that 3/5 is the same in every single one of these. So we need to focus on the number it's being multiplied by. So we have 2, 2 1/4, 3/4, and 5/5. So what's a strategy we could use to order these from smallest to largest or least to greatest? What's one thing we could do? Why don't you start by whispering with the person next to you? What can you do to figure out how to order these? Jack, what do you think? How would we figure out how to order these? Ready to rock?
Ready to roll.
Ready to rock?
Ready to roll.
All right. I heard some really good strategies. One person said, or I heard saying, well, you just need to look at the number it's being multiplied by and figure out the value of that number and kind of think about putting those numbers in order. How many of you said that when you were talking? Okay, kind of, in a way. How many of you, I heard someone say, well, if you get stuck between two of them, you could draw a picture of a pie or a pizza and figure out how large it is that way. That is a strategy. Are there any other strategies that you talked with your partner? Talked about? Any other strategies? Mackenzie? No? Drew? Did you have one?
No.
Will?
So if it's like 2, like for that one, you can just see what if it's if there's also another fraction like 2 and 1/4, you can just see which fraction is bigger.
Oh, okay. You can just see which one's bigger. Awesome. What would be the smallest one here? Raise your hand if you can tell which one of these is the smallest. So again, we're focusing on the number that 3/5 is being multiplied by. Raise your hand if you can tell which one of these is smaller. So we have a 2, 2 and 1/4, 3/4, and 5/5. Raise your hand if you can tell which one of these would be the smallest answer. Whisper to your partner. All right, ready to rock? On the count of 3, I want you to tell me which equation is the smallest. 1, 2, 3.
3/4 times 3/5.
Okay, it's 3/4 times 3/5. For some of you are like, how'd you figure that out? If we look at what 3/5 is being multiplied in each, I'm going to underline them. So we have 5/5, 3/4, 2 and 1/4, and 2. We know that whatever 3/5 is being multiplied by, that's what's going to determine its order. So since we're going from least to greatest, we need to look for the smallest fraction or mixed number to start us off. Well, 2 and 2 and 1/4, those are both greater than 1, right? Yeah, so those are our largest numbers. We're starting with our least. Then we have 3/4 and 5/5. Well, is one of these equal to 1?
Yeah.
Yes, which one, Drew?
5.
Yeah, 5/5, right? So that leaves us with 3/4. That is our smallest one because it is the only fraction under 1 or less than 1. So 3/4 would be our first one. So go ahead and write it with me. 3/4 times 3/5. Then I'm going to put a comma so I can show that I'm separating it. So we're done with this one. We use this one. Now we need to think about what is our second smallest one. Raise your hand if you can determine the second smallest equation. Layla, what's our second smallest?
5/5 times 3/5.
Raise your hand if you agree with Layla. Yes, because again, 2 and 2 and 1/4, those are both larger than 1. Well, 5/5 is exactly 1, so that would be our next smallest. So let's write that one next. 5/5 times 3/5. I'm going to put a comma. In 5th grade, as you're going, if you wanted to put like one slash or line through them to show that you use them, you could. Yeah. Now we have 2 left. Who can determine what the next smallest one is? Raise your hand if you can tell what the next smallest one is. Zoe, what is our next smallest one? That's okay. We shouldn't be playing with plastic bags right now, so whoever's it is, throw it away. Zoe, what would be our next smallest? Well, we haven't solved it yet, so we're solving it together if you're paying attention. So which one of these, 2 times 3/5 or 2 and 1/4 times 3/5, which one of these would be smaller? 2 times 3/5? How many of you agree with Zoe? 2 times 3/5 would be the next smallest one. It would be, because 2 and 1/4 is larger than 2 and 3/5. So then we have 2 times 3/5, comma, which then leaves 2 and 1/4 times 3/5 as the last one. Are there questions on this type of problem? Will?
So it's 2 times 3/5 Is it the second largest or third smallest?
Either one. Either one would work. Either one would work. Mackenzie?
Why don't you just do one, like for this one you do one as the smallest and four as the largest, and then the other one four as the smallest and one as the largest.
Wait, what are you talking about?
Like you can number it.
Oh, I want you to get in the practice of writing them out as well. Okay, that's why we're gonna write them out. But you're right. If you wanted to, yeah, you could order them. Okay, I want you to go ahead. I want you to solve our remaining 3 problems on your own. So number 2, 3, and 5. If you already solved them, great, but you need to be quietly working at your desk while everyone else has a chance to solve them. Thank you. Keep in mind, for number 5, you're doing the opposite. Your order is greatest to least, the largest to smallest. Okay, I'm going to give you another moment. Most people are finishing up their last problem. I'll tell you what really looks like together. And then we'll do our workbook. All right, ready to rock? All right, 5th grade, let's look at these together. So, number 2, put your books away. Books away. We're going to correct these 3 problems, and I'll let you know what your homework is. So again, we look at number 2. So we have 3/5 times 4 4/5, and we want to know, when we take 4 4/5 and multiply it by 3/5, is it going to be smaller than, less than, or equal to just 4/5? Well, the fraction 3/5, we need to first determine, is that smaller, larger, or equal to 1? What is it? It is smaller. 3/5 is smaller than 1. So that means if we're taking 4 4/5 and multiplying it by 3/5, the product will be smaller. So that means 3/5 times 4 4/5, That's less than just 4/5. How many of you got less than for number 2? How many of you got less than for number 2? Okay. Then we had number 3. So same thing, we look, well, 3 3/5 is on both sides of our box. So I need to look at 2 over 2. So 3 3/5 times 2 over 2 is either going to be less than, greater than, or equal to just 3 3/5. Well, if I look at 2 over 2, is it smaller than, larger than, or equal to 1? It's equal to 1 because our numerator and our denominator are the same. So 3 3/5 times 2 over 2 is the same as 3 3/5 times 1. So it's just equal to 3 3/5. How many of you got equal to for number 3? Nice. Then finally we had number 5. So for number 5, we did the same thing as we did for number 4, except instead of least to greatest, we went greatest to least. So on the count of 3, tell me the common fraction in every equation. 1, 2, 3.
1/3.
1/3 is the common one. So I'm going to underline the other fractions so that I know which ones to focus on. So 2 1/3, 2 2/3, 4, and 3 3/3. So since I'm ordering greatest to least, I want to find the one that's the largest first. Well, 3/3, that's equal to what? Show me on your hand. What is 3/3 equal to? Show me on your hand. 3 over 3 is the same as the whole number 1. So this is equal to 1. Then we have 4. That's larger than 1. We have 2 2/3, and then 2 1/3. So show me on your hand which one of these is the largest. Which one of these is the largest that I've underlined? 4. So our first equation we should have listed is 4 times 1/3. Nice. Now I'm going to put a comma. So I put a line through that one since I used it. What's our second largest? Now we have 3/3, 2 2/3, and 2 1/3. Which one is our second largest? Raise your hand if you can tell me. What's our second largest? What's our second largest? Richie? Raise your hand if you agree with Richie. 2 2/3 times 1/3. Yes, that is our second largest because we have 1, 2, and 2/3 versus 2 and 1/3. So 2 2/3, comma, and I put a line through that one. Now we have these two left, 3 over 3 and 2 1/3. Who can raise their hand and tell me? What's the next one? What's the next one, Michael?
2 1/3 times 1/3.
Raise your hand if you agree with Michael. Yes, 2 1/3 is larger than 3/3, which is 1. So then we have 2 1/3. Then on the count of 3, let's say it together. What's our last one? 1, 2, 3. 3/3 times 1/3. Nice. All right, close your eyes or put your head down. Oh, I forgot to write the rest of this equation for that one. 2 1/3 times 1/3. All right, close your eyes and put your head down. On the count of 3, I want you to show me 1 through 5 how you're feeling when it comes to just looking at an equation and figuring out greater than, less than, or equal to, or ordering them from least to greatest. 1, 2, 3. Show me 1 through 5. How are you feeling? Alright, keep your hand raised if you think a little bit more practice with your homework is going to help you feel more comfortable. Yeah. Okay. Hands down. Hands down. Alright. Lift up your heads, open your eyes. In your workbook, you are going to open up to page 503. Frankie, you shouldn't be working on your homework, dude.
You have to do the whole book now. Frankie, erase it all.
Alright, so 503. Addie, 503. Alright, you are circling. You are circling number 1, numbers 3 through 5. So that means 3, 4, and 5. number 9, and number 12. I'll say it again. We're on page 300 or 503. You are circling number 1, numbers 3 through 5, so that's 3, 4, and 5, number 9, and number 12. I'm going to dismiss you to grab your snack. When you come back in, you'll have a couple minutes to work on this. Capiche?
Aye.
All right.